So I will give you a little bit of background. Is that okay, Michael? I will start out off here. And I'll introduce myself, and Michael will introduce himself too. I will tell you a little bit about the background here. My name is Jesper. I'm a self-employed consultant and coach, working with a solution-focused approach for years. And the reason actually why we are having this workshop today is because Michael and me, we occasionally meet up at conferences, network meetings, and stuff like that. We have this tendencies always standing in the corner and talking and sharing stories and whatever happens. And Michael told me some stories the last time we met, and I think, hey, this could be a bloody good workshop. If I can get him in here and get him to tell some stories about what he's doing, then it would be really good and interesting, not just for me, but maybe for other people as well. So that's why we are here today. And before I tell you any more, I would like, just for you, those of you who have no idea, and who is Michael, maybe just let him say a couple of words about who he is, what he's doing, and then I will get back to you again. Would that be okay, Michael?
Sure. Hi, I'm Michael. I'm a social worker by education, and worked 23 years now, I think, in child protection services. And the last 13 years, I have been a manager or team leader, mainly for caseworkers. And the last couple of years, I've also worked with family therapists. And this September in 25, I had a new, got a new position, and I'm currently only leading a team of family therapists in a local government here in Denmark, a municipality. Yeah, that's a little bit of who I am. Then at one point in my, I've been trained in focused methods for a long time, ever since I basically started as a social worker, where there was a big move here in Denmark, where you kind of, with the whole science of safety and so on, try to work in a more solution-focused way. And yeah, in the middle of that, I also took a master in leadership and innovation. Yeah.
And the interesting thing, last time that Michael and I was talking, was that he said, "Oh, I started in a new position, in a new job. I'm going in as has to be the leader of a department in another municipality." And we started talking about, so how is it? I mean, you're starting a new place, and this new place, as I understood it, was not especially working with a solution-focused approach. So if you are considering that as one of your competences or one of your ways of working, and you can either go in as a manager or a leader and just say, this is how we do it, shut up and do like I say, or you can go in other ways and try and figure out. And we had some really interesting discussions about that, and that's what I'm hoping to take in this workshop today. And just to let you know, everybody, you can write in the chat if you want to, if you have questions, or maybe something resonates with yourself that you want to share. We can do that on the way, and we will make some stops on the way so you can make some comments on that. So the main topic, if you're really convinced that the solution-focused approach is your thing, you know, this is a good way to work, this is a good way to engage my people, it's a good way to achieve the goals. And what I find fascinating as well is working in an environment with a lot of regulations and rules that you have to follow. So you can't, in that sense, in my world, you can't just let go and work 100%. There are some considerations you have to make. So I'm just clicking in a lot of new people who are coming. So this is the framework for our stories here today. So first of all, just to figure out who is here, would it be possible to to sort of make just a very short comment in the chat so we have an idea who is here. I mean, are you a leader? Are you someone who are responsible, a team leader, a leader for a department, or whatever, that you are responsible for other people and you're responsible for creating a good environment that your people can work the best way they can? Would it be possible for you to just write a short notice? What are your position in your work? So we have one here, leader, executive government. Yeah.
Why people are writing that? I was just thinking of something. Jesper, should I share that while people are writing their comments? No, actually, the very first time I kind of decided I liked a solution-focused approach was when I met the scaling question, which was very early. But the whole point, I've done a lot of sports early on, and the whole point of actually asking why not go from 6 to 10, but to actually go from 0 to 6 and say, why are you not a 0? And it was just when you were introducing taking on a team of people who are not training solution focused. There's so many things that already works, even though they're not working solution focused. And I was just thinking about that first love of mine for solution focused, and yeah, and it's just the whole idea of actually going backwards on a scale from 6 to 0 rather than finding faults all the time. So I think, yeah, so there's still, even though they're solution focused, there's a lot of good in the methods they already use.
Nice, very nice, yeah. And there are some here, people from care manager to working with project team, school counselor, used to be a leader, now coaching people, leaders team. And I mean, that's a little bit like myself. I'm self-employed, so I'm not a leader, but I'm in touch with a lot of leaders. So I hear a lot of stories about it as well. So leader for 30 years now, a self-employed consultant, helping other leaders. Yes. So that was just to get an idea. Everybody, of course, is a welcome. You don't need to be a leader. And hope you will enjoy this as well. So, Michael, you told me when we were talking about this one, you had taken in a new position. You were going in, as I know, there was a bit a leaderless place, maybe not that visible management or leader, or there was something you had to fill out. And you just correct me on the way when I say. So what was your first thoughts when you say, now I'm gonna go in? I don't know these people. They have to get to know me, and I have to get to know them. What was sort of your considerations or your strategies? Say, how do I start up here?
I mean, yeah, I think they've had 6 or 7 leaders the last 6 years. So, and the last year there has been a leader who is now my superior, but who has kind of taken it on as a side gig on his present job. So he has not been very present. So I think my first thought is to make sure they know I'm there and be present, and to listen out and notice all the good things that they're carrying with them in the team. Because coming in as a new leader, there's always this expectancy or nervousness. What is he going to change? So I think to listen carefully before I say anything about the changes was probably one of my main things.
So what if, suppose we had one of your people here, and we could ask them to say, okay, so what did you notice about Michael? I said, maybe he's not one of these leaders who only will be here for a year and then they will go on and do something else. Maybe he's someone who's actually is going to stay here and do something and maybe be a sort of different leader. What do you think that person would respond?
Um, no, I do think I keep talking about the fact that we're creating something together,
Hmm.
and I'm not just fixing a problem. And um, hopefully, I would say, and I don't think that's always true. I know that's not always true, but I would wish they would say more that I was not so busy changing things or so busy telling my view of things.
Mm.
Um, so, but I do think I'm very focused on not changing approaches or tools or something, but actually talking about the culture a lot.
Mm.
And I think that's kind of the whole foundation in any team is, what we don't see, what we do all the time, and what other people see us doing, rather than just what we have on a PowerPoint presentation.
Mm. So not changing things right away, not just coming in and say, I'm the leader, I'm the manager, now we're going to do this, this, and this. So what, I don't know if you can answer that question, but what was the first thing you didn't change on purpose?
Yeah, maybe I would actually say the people. I think I'm very careful not to change how people talk or how they were to approach me, or just the way they are going about their work, who they are as people. I don't think I was trying to to change that, because if you want to change the culture, it's a little bit at a time. And I think I just have to add myself as an ingredient to start out with, and not try and fix everybody else. So
So what did you do instead? I mean, if I may be a little bit provoking you.
mm,
So you just went in and said, "Hi, I'm Michael," and sitting down and do nothing.
mm.
You
Yeah.
probably didn't do that. So,
No, but
so what did you do
yeah,
instead of changing things?
but I think that's a very hard balance, and especially one of the greatest challenges that I was surprised with was in my previous job. I was very close to my team, so I would see pretty much every team member every day, or be in contact with them every other day, and so on. And here I can have weeks where I don't see one of them because they're so busy doing their proper work, helping the clients, the families. So I think actually that's one of the challenge. How can I, the little time I'm with them, how can I actually add something, be an influence without having a fixed mindset? And I think that's really a challenge, because I always have something that I want to talk to somebody about whenever I see them. And one of my challenges is just to sit down and listen. And I think actually thinking about what to say today, and since English is not my first language, I had to look up some words, and I found this amazing word, a vowel, which is very difficult for Dane to say. Just appreciate it all around the world. W and V is impossible for us to say in English, but a vowel, and I didn't even know what it meant. So it's like an affirmation. So to actually take the time whenever people come to me with a problem, to actually, okay, but what actually worked? It's fine, you have a problem, and we'll talk about that. But you know, there are other from the scale. From we are here on 6. What happened that we're not a 0? To actually prioritize that every time I see somebody is I think that's the most challenging task actually.
Mm. So talking about in what's not working, what's working there. Yeah, if people come with problems, say, "Oh, can you help me? You're the leader," which
Yeah.
is a quite normal thing to do. I mean, you're a leader for a reason
Mm.
because you have the overview, you know what to do, you have the competence to make some decisions. So it's quite obvious to somebody. Sometimes people would come to you and say, "Please help me."
Mm.
And this is working, and this is not working. What do I do now? What I hear you do is actually step back and not just say, okay, so you do this, this, and this, but actually affirm them in what is working. despite it might not go as well as they want to.
Yeah, and I had one of the people I've spoken to the most. When I started, she was very stressed and didn't feel like she could manage her assignments. So she's probably one of the ones I spend most time with. I was really proud. If I could say one thing that I'm proud of, which is not very Danish either. But actually, she and a colleague came yesterday with a very complicated case. And she actually started out saying, Michael, we don't want you to fix anything. We don't want feedback. We just want your affirmation. So can you just tell us that we have done a really good job? And that really helped me. And I wrote up on my whiteboard what succeeded they with. Hvad lykkedes de med in Danish? And it was just such a helpful, a helpful invitation for me, because it didn't come and say, fix this problem, Michael. Just tell us that we have done a good job. That was an awesome invitation. And I do think it has, for me, that was a product of my many talks with her and the way I have kept, talking about what actually works in your work life. Can we talk about that instead of just fixing one little problem at a time?
So what does that tell you about being a solution-focused leader?
It takes time. That's one of the, and time is just that, like I said, I think that's the hardest challenge, actually getting time with people, because they're so busy in their work life. And to be honest, the primary function and the primary passion is to help families in need. It's not really communicating with me. So of course they only come to me when there is a problem. And to kind of then allow ourselves to solve the problem and actually look at what works. And so as a leader, to actually allow the time, because one thing you can do as a leader that you cannot do as a colleague is time management. You can say, this is important time. So one thing that I really cracked down on, there was a culture when I came where people, when they had a meeting together, like a staff meeting together, very often client work would supersede it. They would prioritize that over the meetings together. And I just said, we have so little time together. I need you to be there. And that is one thing I can do as a manager, is to, allot that time.
So create the space.
Yeah.
Okay. So what else, when people here are listening, thinking, oh, we have Michael, the guru, the solution-focused leader. Okay, I'm over-exaggerating a bit here.
That's why it's nice to talk to you. Yes, but you almost make me feel better than I am. Thank you.
Talking about affirmation, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
No, but I'm thinking what I find really interesting here, when you say time management, you have very short interactions with people.
Yeah.
You're not seeing them quite often because they're busy. Of course, they're doing their jobs. Still, you want to have an idea on what they're doing and you want to support them. How do you do that? Do you have a sort of a small story about that? How you managed to get these small interactions?
Yeah. That talk yesterday was a really good example of that, where they really wanted me to. I also had another talk with somebody, and we had to talk about her salary, which was not really. It's difficult to kind of say, but she has, of course, in a salary talk, she has to talk about what she actually does well. And in the end of the talk, she says, "But what do you think of me as an employee?" And that was such a nice invitation, because I could actually say to her that, everything you have said, I can see. And then we had a talk about, I said, I don't know. And that's one of the things, not knowing stands. I don't know how this, but what I can see is that you spend a lot of time with your colleagues. And I'm wondering if that actually also generates into work with the clients. And we could just talk about that in a way where, and actually the conclusion, what I left her with was, I'm really interested to see your work. Can you please come and tell me when it goes well? Because if because I hadn't spoken much with her about anything, about her work. So I didn't really know much about her. And I could say that because she didn't come, I didn't assume anything. So I just told her, can you please come and tell me when you do something really good? And that was, I think making invitations like that is important to show that I'm not just there to fix problems, but also affirm what already works.
What I hear in this one, and that's my interpretation, is also the honesty in saying, listen, I don't know everything you do. Can you help me make that visible? So I have more an idea of who you are and what you are doing. I mean, I can see on the paper what you are doing, but to get a more closer sense of you as an employee.
Yeah, I think I'm very honest that way. And I normally say to people when they ask me, and I say, I know how you behave at staff meetings. I don't know how you are actually doing your work, which is outside the staff meetings. So, yeah. And the only way I can know that is by them telling me. And of course, to actually focus on what works for them is a nice way of having that conversation.
So what pops to my mind here is as well, and the one thing, if you're a leader, you are expected to lead. Yeah, you're sort of expected to know more than your employees, to have the overview, to know what kind of assignments has to be solved, and all that. So on the one hand, you have to tell what to do, and on the other hand, I hear you would like to be on the same level as your employee, get to know them, and all that. How is the balance in a solution-focused way? Because if we say the solution-focused approach, they are the experts. They know how to solve their assignments as well, and you should more or less get out of the way. But on the other hand, you need to lead. You need to make sure everything runs the way it's expected to run.
I think one gift you have in child protection work or family therapy is that people are extremely motivated. I mean, when I first became a leader, I thought I had to meet up with people Monday morning to kind of get them going. And I have kind of developed a reminder to myself on Fridays to help them to have a good weekend. So I put all my effort on telling people, now you need to go on holiday, or you need to go on weekend. How can I help you to have a good weekend? Because people are, if anything, over-engaged. So I don't think like motivation work is not necessary as a leader. So I think, I mean, it is a noble phrase that to lead from one step behind. And I think that's sometimes the challenge is to sit back, because people expect that of me. Also the team members, you're right. But they don't, but since they're family therapists, they don't want you to lead too clearly. So you need to. I think I use humor actually a lot. So, for example, I had a problem with nobody wanted to reply on an email, and I said, okay, there's a deadline here, and if you don't, then it's just first come first serve. It was about the summer holidays, and everybody just very quickly emailed me. And another point, there was something we had to do, and they were all motivated and had a lot of fun because we had prizes to win. So then I joke and say I use the stick and carrot method, for example. Sometimes I get carrots and sometimes I get stick, but it's I think it's a matter of forming a clear picture of the future that we can all see ourselves in. And I think and it becomes very specific, one of the big challenges is that I don't have that clear picture of right now for myself. Okay. So yeah, so I don't even know where to lead right now. Everybody expects us to do something differently, but the politicians and the people in charge are not very clear on the goals. So to lead into an unclear situation is basically what I'm doing right now. And so I'm trying just to take say one little step at a time, wherever I can see there's something we have to move towards, and then engage them in how does that look when we do that? Because I think they have a lot of good ideas already.
So what is helpful for you in this situation when you say you haven't quite found your way right now and you're not really having a clear picture? What is especially helpful for you?
I mean, one thing that is just the underlying fact is that I mean, even though they've had so many shifting managers or leaders, they work really well. They help a lot of people. I think we have about 350 clients a year, and it's going really well. I don't think performance goes up and down depending on the leader. So I don't think I have to rescue anybody, or so in that sense, it's often myself putting the pressure, not really them or the politicians. So things are going really well. So that is helping me to lean back into that and to look at all the things they already do well. I mean, there's no panic. But of course, we all want to develop. So do they. So I think to find those areas where we need to do things better, and I do have identified some. But again, the challenge is where to find the space, the time, and the energy to actually introduce that and do it in a way that they have the possibility of giving input. Because I do think whenever we have an issue up, they have a lot of good solutions. As an example, we need to work closer with the caseworkers. And we talked about how to do that in an informal setting. And some people came up with, like, in Denmark, you have this nytårskur, which is like some celebration after New Year's. And so we invited the caseworkers over, which has never been done before. But it was just somebody said, let's do that. And then I just went with it. It was a good idea. And people organized it. And so that's one way of doing something.
Okay. Yeah. I would like to make a short timeout with our participants, with the people here. And I hope they will be okay that I will put you in breakout rooms. For those of you who can, for those of you who can't, for technical reasons, you can stay in here. But the idea is to just have a very short talk about what do you, listening to Michael, find interesting? What has Michael been saying? And you think, sounds interesting. And what kind of questions arise for that? So we might be able to use the last part of this workshop for some questions for Michael. So instead of me and Michael sitting and babbling along, maybe you would be curious on asking him some questions. So I will put you into breakout rooms for just 4 minutes, very short, with the question, what do you find interesting in what you have heard so far? And what would you like to ask for questions? What are you missing? Saying, how come? What if? And so on. I hope it was a short time, but I hope you just had an idea to reflect a little bit about what Michael had been talking about. And if you have any questions, I mean, you can just unmute you and ask a short question, and I'm sure Michael will do his best to try and answer that. Yes, Kenneth, you have a question.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Kenneth.
Kenneth from Singapore. I'm just curious, how would you deal with non-performers? I mean, sometimes we may not need active intervention when things are going well, but when you have people who just don't cut it, and it could be borderline that you feel that this is not the right fit, and how will you hold these conversations? I'm just curious, using the SF approach.
Yeah, I do think, and I've gained. I was just having a nice chat with Catherine and a couple more in the room, and one of the things is experience, because I used to be very stiff about these things, and especially non-performance is a hard issue. There's nobody ever on a 0 on a scale. I mean, and that's one of the things. I would always, no matter how badly people are performing, I would really try and And I think from an ethical point of view, try and affirm something they do well. Because nobody is a zero. And whether, as one of the things as a leader, I mean, when I used to work as a solution-focused practitioner, I had to remind myself that clients are also just people like myself. And now I have to remind myself that my team members are just like clients also. They're also just humans. So to actually start by affirming that they're not a zero, there is something, but also that there is something that just is expected. And to talk about how they can get there. And I've already had that talk with a few people in my team. And I think I was very clear with one person, and she actually has resigned recently. But I think it's for the best, because I was very clear what I expect of her. And I have several conversations of her, and I just, kept standing my ground on what is expected, but also willingness to help her. I think that's one of the commitments you need to do, and say, okay, if you're not living up to it, I will do my very best to get you there. And like if I had been with a client, I would just say I was not good enough leader to get her there. So it's also my failure when she quits or when she doesn't make it, if I can say it like that.
Thank you. So what I like about what you're saying there is that looking for something to build on and have the assumptions that nobody is never doing nothing. They're always doing something, and something that could be helpful in that direction of becoming better. And what I hear as well is offering support,
Yeah, and sometimes they do a lot of things that I don't notice, I don't value. So I actually also giving them a chance to telling me what they are doing that I don't see. That can sometimes be very surprising, and affirming that and saying somebody who is spending a lot of time, more time than we simply had. And I just kept holding on to that. Very good. I mean, I cannot say it's a bad thing you do. We just don't have the time for it. So to holding on to the good that they're actually doing, yeah.
I find that really interesting because sometimes I'm having sessions with in coaching with people who are coming and say, hey, my manager complains that I'm not doing well enough, or my manager says I'm not doing, but I am doing well enough. I am doing, he's just not opening his eyes. He's just not seeing what I'm actually doing,
Interesting.
And the talk about this one I find extremely interesting is, so what is it that he's not noticing? What is it he needs to see? And how can you make that visible? So it goes both ways. So when you say you are conscious about there's something that I don't see in this employee. I don't see everything. So how can I make that visible? Suppose I maybe miss something.
Yeah, and coming back to that story where I had a talk with somebody who I felt like spent a lot of time with colleagues, maybe more than she should, so she didn't have the time for clients. I was very open with her and say, I really don't see the outcome of those conversations. Maybe it's a really good outcome towards the clients. I cannot say for sure, but I'm just concerned about it. And I think having that talk with her definitely would change her focus or her notice. And that's one of the things that I was thinking leading up to here. And I was very inspired by a workshop yesterday about what do we notice. Sometimes we just need to remind ourselves of keywords that we kind of forget in the business of life. And just the whole, sometimes leading people's focus by asking questions. So what do we notice together? So in my conversation with her, if I put the focus there, she will notice it more by herself. I know. I mean, she will, that evaluation that, she will have that herself. Am I actually using my time productively now?
Very interesting. Yeah. So create this awareness of noticing. What else for questions do you have, dear people? We can open Michael's mind and look inside his brain and be curious on how come he does it. So if nobody says...
Catherine asked something. Can I repeat your question, Catherine? Oh, that's okay. She was just saying, knowing what I know now, what I would have liked to do differently from the beginning. Is that a correct? You're muted, Catherine. So if you want to add something.
Yeah.
And knowing what you know now, with all your experience, what might you do differently moving forward?
Oh, yeah. Moving forward, yeah. And I do think this whole, and that's, I actually said to Catherine, one of the things, that one of the reasons why it's easy for me to agree to do this workshop is just a way to stop up and reflect on my own practice. Because busy day, I don't have an hour every day to sit and talk with you, Jesper, about how I do everything correctly and my own notes and my own focus. So to be honest, I really hope that I'm being better at leading. And I think this leading the people's focus with my questions more than my answers. Because it's so easy when you have limited time with people to squeeze in all my thoughts on what needs to happen. And it's just a challenge to find that right balance. And it's an ongoing battle to find that balance between, like you said, leading forward and also just stepping backwards and asking questions. And I would definitely like to step more back and just ask good questions rather than giving answers in the time we are all together.
One question that comes to my mind, and people please interrupt me if you have a question you find more interesting. Nicholas, you are...
Yes, I have one question, and that is, we heard about what you would do differently, but what would you do exactly the same? What are the things that you think you did really well going into this?
Thank you. I do think I have really overemphasized the past before me. And I think, like, I heard some podcasts, sometimes as leaders, we're also custodians, like in a museum. We have to take care of the past. And I think to just affirm that there's been so much good work before me. So all the good doesn't start with me entering. I'm just building on what already happened, already did happen. So I think that I have done really well. And I think I've managed to get some of the more experienced, the more experienced people there joining in, not having their defenses up, because I acknowledge that what they've been doing until now is good work. They shouldn't feel bad about that. That's one thing. And I do think I have built relationally. I do think I have the little time I'm with people. I do think I'm showing them that I care about the work, that we are in it together. And I think I'm very mindful of the way I phrase emails, for example, and always put we. And in Danish, we have a lot of silly words that create uncertainty. What do I actually mean? So I think I'm very straight to the point in my emails, and I know that's culturally. Some cultures can find that rude when you're to the point, but I think very clear communication is one thing that I think I've managed to do well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
One last, I try again because I'm so curious. So in a workplace, you will have disagreements. And you, in a leader, you say you try to be very firm. What are your tips, if you should say to someone else, or you should give an advice to yourself, who knows, to say what is a good position to be in if you have disagreements, maybe even sort of conflicts, to make sure that whatever happens in this negative sense, something good can erase from that?
When you say I'm firm, I would hope it's clear more than firm. Firm sounds so negative, but I do, as a person, I do think I'm very transparent, and I realize that to try and pretend I'm thinking something else. So I think I'm very open with my thoughts, and I think when there is a conflict of interest, I think the biggest challenge is actually, as a leader, is to step back and ask the right questions and actually be curious about the other viewpoint and not just steamroll people just because I can. And it's easier often. It feels easier at the moment to steamroll people. But in the long run, of course, that is not, it's just not producing anything good. So to actually ask the questions and I make sure I understand the other viewpoints. And I think the challenge is also if you have a big team of many viewpoints. It's not just, I think this is more simple one-to-one, right? Because then, but when you have several other viewpoints on mine, to actually navigate that and give space to everyone and not to give more space to one viewpoint than another within the team is a big challenge, I think.
So what are your strategies till now? You say it's a big challenge. We'll have many viewpoints in a team. So how do you navigate that?
Very practically, I have accepted that it's not possible with 20 people to have that conversation, because it's I'm one ingredient, and to kind of the moment I become the ingredient, it becomes a little the dialogue becomes one-to-one, but the other part in the conversation, in the dialogue, is just so multifaceted that it doesn't make any sense. So one thing I have realized is I need to split them into teams, as groups, like you just split us into smaller groups, and then come back. So then it becomes less faceted talk, but on the other hand, it's also more on less nuanced, which is also a challenge. But I think that's a very practical thing for me to kind of try and summarize the different stands and on a viewpoint. And I do think to kind of make sure everybody is heard, and then making sure that if my viewpoint is different, to explain why I have that stand in it and why I think that is the decision we need to go with, and be accountable to that decision is a big thing for me. Invite people to come and criticize or challenge or ask questions, and I often say, just because I'm the leader, it's not that I know better, but I have the responsibility in the end to make the decision. So whether it's a better or worse decision, I'm not going to be sure about, but it's just my decision in the end that counts.
And do you then invite people to influence that decision?
Yeah. I mean, just yesterday I had such a situation where there was a lot of different opinions about how the leader should act in a meeting when we are all together, and I simply couldn't answer. Some people put some questions to me, and we didn't have the time to answer like those questions. And I said, of course, I feel like answering, but I don't have the time. And I really invite you to come one-on-one to talk to me, because I want to prioritize those talks. But and it was also a way of not trying to give a simple answer to, of course, a complicated question. Because there was one viewpoint in the midst of many. So yeah.
So what I hear as well when we're talking about solution-focused leadership, it's also to step forward and say, I don't know everything. There will be things that I can't answer you for, although you would like to have an answer.
Yeah, I think we all want certainty, and that's a human longing, but sometimes it's not really possible. But to be uncertain together, I think it's important. So whatever I'm certain on, I will be transparent and clear about. So if I have a certain viewpoint, I will let them know. But until then, I would insist on not knowing.
Nice. Catherine, you have your hands up.
I did. As you were just talking about that, and that was a wonderful example, the leadership, when there's different opinions about maybe what the good leader is or what they should be doing or not or whatever. do you sometimes find yourself using those very classic sort of solution-focused questions along the lines of, if we were to know, or if we were to agree, or whatever it might be, what might you notice? What difference would that make? So we're not actually having an argument about the good leader, the bad leader, but what they should. It's not about the content. It's more about if we were somehow able, unbeknowingly how, to reach a particular point of agreement, even if it was only a 50% agreement or 70 or 10, pick your number. What difference would that make to all of us here today? And it actually might does that take it in a different direction? Because it's then about they're having to look at their own resources towards contributing to that outcome, whatever it is. Just wondered.
Yeah. And that is wonderful questions. And in the best of all worlds, I would have liked to ask that. For example, yesterday there wasn't time.
Oh, so, I can understand. I can appreciate that.
So
yes.
But I do think if one of them came to me, I would love to ask her, what would be different if I actually did it that way, and what would you notice, and what would you do differently if I did this?
Yes.
So of course, that would be.
I know it's time, and if it's like me, you think up the good questions as soon as, well, not as soon as you've left, but you think actually that would have been a gem of a question. But anyway, you're doing amazing work from what I can tell.
And that was a perfect ending of this session. Because we are 5 minutes to 9 in our time. I don't know where you are, but there are some other things for the conference as well. I'm just posting the link to the Padlet in the chat so you can see the program. And I don't know, Michael, will you have some final words? Because I think this could go on and on and on, of course, endlessly. And if we could sit with a nice cup of coffee, all of us together, and really share some thoughts on solution-focused leadership. But we don't have that time, so we will meet up somewhere else.
Thank you all. Thank you, Jesper. It's been great to be together.